So hopefully we all know what StateStat is now. But what we're going to do is dive a little bit deeper in behind the scenes of how and why and what for. And hopefully, through this presentation, you guys can think about some questions you want to throw at me. Melbourne, someone wanted to throw me a question about how to change their golf game, get rid of the slice. But that wasn't really part of the program. But throw any questions that you have. This is your opportunity to find out a little bit more. So what are the building blocks of StateStat? As I sort of said this morning, was StateStats isn't just the technology. It's a relationship between the technology and the senior executive management committee. And that senior management committee, that's actually the chief executives from all the departments. They actually meet on a weekly basis, and StateStats is this tool that allows them to have a conversation. The aim is for these guys to use this platform on a monthly cycle. So as you move through each agency over a month, they'll end up back on the agenda. And as I sort of said, it's about what we measure matters. And in this case here, it's about analysing agencies' progress, how they move forward, getting that data back into a system so everybody else can actually see how everything's going on. If you work in government, you know that we also operate in our own divisions, and then we operate within our own executive teams, and then we operate within an organisation, and so forth. Well, that goes on, across many agencies. And when you've got over 100,000 public servants, everyone's doing some great work, but no one's actually feeding this up to the top. And our executives at the highest level need to have this information at hand to understand where they are and how they're performing. So that comes to that measurement and performance. We want to make sure that StateStats is this platform that allows them to show what they're doing in different sectors. And South Australia is a fairly wide and diverse environment, and not what happens in Kangaroo Island is the same what happened in Port Lincoln. So we kind of want to make sure that these guys get an overall picture of what's going on. And then we get down to data-driven decisions, and when we hear this all the time, you hear these kind of terms. I want to be a data-driven government. Well, what is that? We collect a lot of information, we store it, and as Brian said, if it gets stored and tucked away, and it's a project, it never gets elevated up because you didn't open it up for usage. And if it's not opened up for usage, then how do we actually use data to drive? So what happens is someone's got this great data set they've been working on, collecting it. Someone else wants it, but they don't know it exists somewhere else, and then they go off and guess what they do? They go and collect it as well. Now we've got 2 points of truth. Which one's right? Lots of people get fearful that, if I release this data, it's not perfect, and therefore someone's going to make a bad decision because the data's not perfect. Well, put a caveat on it. Put something over it that says, hey, this is what the purpose was, this is how we come to this point, this is what the information's for. But then release it so the data can be used. So we actually have this data lakes that can be tapped. And then really at the end of the day is if we can do that right and we can measure that, we can really create a way of sharing understanding. And I don't just mean this at the executive level, at these senior management councils, but really being able to push that down deeper to all the staff that are involved in projects or certain sectors of business that may overlap with another business. And we're getting more and more of that kind of cross multi-jurisdictional business working together. So let's have a shared understanding, and StateStats becomes that tool. As an idea, the framework includes those 3 components, being the data, the technology, and the executive engagement. And lots of people talk about that. How does that work? What is it? These guys are busy people, and we really want to make sure that those busy people have the right tools that are simple to get them going, so they can actually have conversation. So, what we set out with StateStat was to think about this. Someone said to me, "What do you want StateStat to look like?" And I went, "Oh, great question. Don't know yet, but I do know this. I want it to capture their heart and their mind." Because if it's their heart, they'll want to show people what it is. Hey, I'm proud of this product I've got. I'm going to go keep showing people. We want that to happen. The mind bit is that they know the information is factual and correct and true. So therefore, those 2 things intersect nicely. And that's where that design thinking approach comes from. So I kind of knew that's where we wanted to be. It's got to be dynamic and scalable. I think, so often we build applications and we deploy them and then we just leave them there for the rest of the time. And over time, people go, yeah, that's no good anymore. It's not relevant to me anymore. I'll just get rid of that. I'm not going to use it, I'll find something else. We're in a consumer age, they'll find something else. So let's make sure it's dynamic and it's scalable. If it could be working for government agencies, could it scale up to the citizen? Maybe, maybe not. I think it will. That's the next process of moving into the public domain. We want to use existing technology. So as part of the collective that our government's part of, we're an enterprise stack with Esri, and we wanted to use what we've already got. We're not going to go build new stuff. We're not going to go create new things. We're going to use what we've got. That's the tool set we've got. Let's use it. Let's maximise the value. We've already paid for it. Let's keep using it. So don't sit there and go like, oh, I'm counting how many widgets, maybe the bill goes up next time we use it more. So how do we actually change that mindset? Well, we've got to create value from what we've got. So let's change the mindset and say, this is what we've got. Let's go use it. Let's maximise the value of our investments. Then the last part is really the Office of Data Analytics. What we're setting up really is about a supporting function behind the team. So, you know, my chief executive, to make sure he's comfortable in using that tool set every day of the week. Hey, I've got a problem with this. I'm not sure how this is working. Can you help me? Yes, is the answer all the time. But we also want to work with our agencies as we onboard them through a process, because not all of them are at the same stage of maturity. So what we want to do with these guys is allow them to understand, hey, I'm not quite there yet, but I can learn from somebody else's business. And that's the thing we want to really do here, is we want this to be an evolutional product that grows and shapes as people move on. So our role is to help them get there. And really at the end of the day is provide better analytics and better visualizations of this complex data that we have. So in a sense of like, what does the StateStat look like? Well, StateStat implementation framework is this circle of life. You know, really at the end of the day, we start the build process, we go out there, we put all the things together that we're looking for, we work with the agencies, bring them on board, then we create the StateStat dashboard for that part of the business, and then we go through a continuous improvement program with them. So it's this evolution that's going to continue moving forward, and I think this is the important part here. It continues moving forward. The executive team, on the other hand, they have these regular agency meetings and they catch up and they sort of like make some decisions. They go back to their agencies, they implement. We want them to measure their implementation process, what's going on, and then bringing that data back into a system. So what we sort of say here, let's join these two systems together. And where they intersect is actually this bit about the data set's been updated in the StateStat. So you've got the executive framework operating in one space, and then you've got the actual technology in another space. And our business is to support those sides of each part of the business. So it's a simple way of looking at it, and it's fairly complex, and it's fairly, you know, and it moves quite frequently and quite fast. But if you can simplify the process, you can actually really get down to how you're actually going to deliver a better solution for them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each one of these sectors, the supply chain and how we lift data up, a bit about our ArcGIS portal and how that fits into the whole South Australian government and StateStat platform. So these are kind of three distinct parts of the business. This is the technology side of things, the executive management things, the people part, that's something else that's dealt with in a different way. So on the supply chain, I'm going to take you through one of the agencies, so EPA. As I said this morning, we use them because they are really good at a lot of things, and they were, in the sense, they really wanted to be part of this. So they have this really cool thing called a program logic model. It talks about their strategic framework at the highest level. So this is kind of the gold blueprint that we want our other agencies to follow. Underneath that, they have their activities, they have their outcomes, their measurements, and their strategic direction, and then what does it look like for South Australia. So they kind of articulated a bit about StateStat before we even got there. And then they have all their work program inside of it. And if you kind of look through this, you know, their activities, licensing, compliance, investigations, emergency response, illegal dumping, well, they're measurements. They're going to have to measure this. If we go down and look at like things like outcomes, you know, fewer incidents affecting people, well, again, that's a measurement. We can measure that. They can actually determine whether they're getting better at that or not. StateStats is a good platform for that to happen there. And then obviously there's strategic direction, and then what does a success look like for StateStat? So this is a kind of a really nice simple blueprint that you can work through an agency and go, what is your business and how does this work across this thing? Because this sets the conversation for the next part. And the next part is about what indicators do you want to put in there. And for us, we're sort of like, I'll use the EPA here again. Their indicators here, the executive group, the operational group, and the community group. When we went through these indicators, and this was done with the UXG team and the project management team out of Esri, Melbourne and Adelaide, but we really sat down as a collective over many, many phone calls and tried to work through this idea. What's this going to look like when we start? What can we include into this, and what shouldn't we include into this? So we started off things like, percentage of completion of agency staff performance management reviews. It's pretty exciting, isn't it? But the thing is, the executives are accountable twice a year to make sure those staff performance reviews are there, and the state government has set a target of 100% completion. So are they doing the business? Now, if you look through this whole range here, what's the cycle, what's the and if you've got geography, and you'll notice that performance reviews have got no geography. That's because the EPA, their whole office is actually in the city. But if we were looking at something like Environment and Water, who has offices and national parks spread out across South Australia, what they've got is they've got staff base across the whole of the state. Now, if we ask the same question, how's your staff performance reviews going, and we know where those people are located and what offices, we would get a different picture. Are the staff performance reviews being done in the country or in the city areas, more or less? Maybe it gives the CE an opportunity to go, do you know what? I'm 30, 40% underdone in the country. So I need to elevate that up. That'll get my target up there. So it's a way of sort of understanding this conversation. Other things we had in there was like, bottle recycling or container recycling refunds. South Australia is really good at it. We've got about a 77% return rate. We've been doing it for about 30 years. So lots of people return their bottles and cans. We know where the facilities are. We know how much is returned in the sense because the third parties are two private companies that issue the money, Coca-Cola Amatil and the breweries. They give the money out to those collection points, and then that cans and bottles and that get recycled. Now, what we're saying to the EPA is that's a good opportunity to start making your data geographically based. Why? When they do campaigns, is it successful? And if so, what areas was there an uplift? So it's a great way of us being able to elevate them from not thinking spatial to thinking spatial. So at ArcGIS portal, so South Australian Government, we have a thing called Location SA. It's a collection of people and organisations. I call it the Coalition of the Willing. There is no mandate for us to do this. There was no reason for us to do it other than everybody that's part of this platform actually wants to work together. And GIS is perfect for it. We've been doing these things before time. So think about this, open data. We were doing open data before it was called open data. We used to send CDs out, download a zip file off a web, didn't have a cool name for it, but we're doing it. So GIS is a really good spot to think about how do we develop a coalition of the willing in the public sector. And what you sort of see there is we've moved ourselves off our in-house products, and now we've moved ourselves to the AWS side. And what we've got on there is we've got the whole platform sitting there, and these are all the portals that have been stand up. And what we can do out of that is share across all the platforms, and we can open that up, and that actually makes it a far more effective way of transferring our knowledge. So there's agencies that have got data that's spatial, and they've got agencies who have got non-spatial, but they've got an application called ArcGIS Portal. They can actually store their data there, and we can stream that data back into our StateStat platform. So things that we've got in, this is our portal entry page for our department. You can jump into the StateStat. But what we've sort of shown here is there's a whole range of other products. What we've sort of said is our portal for Premier and Cabinet, we want this to be about the citizen. So if any agency is working on citizen-based data, we want you to collaborate in this space. We're going to open this up for everybody. So human services, education, child protection. If you're dealing with citizens, we want to help you elevate yourself up and grow your business from this place. So you see things on there, it's like, human services is around like, it's a carer outlet, finder tool, road traffic fatalities, StateStats obviously, some community engagement side of things. And then the last one is a rubbish detector. I'm just going to highlight this one for a second. We've got a data scientist, and over a weekend he wrote some code and created this thing called a rubbish detector. He takes scenes of imagery and identified there was rubbish in people's backyards. He did that on a weekend. trained the machine, started creating this neural network working. He made this data set, got X and Y's and lats, and all we said was, let's put that into GIS and we'll give you a visualization of how good your business is. What he was able to do is immediately start to think about how does he retrain the machine to be better. This scene here is a good indication of where there's a high build-up of rubbish in those two backyards. It does a lot of things. One is it can help public housing think about how they're going to do cleanups. But why we actually did this little bit of work is because we believe there may be a correlation between rubbish build-up in people's backyards, mental health, and people at risk, and children at risk. And because I said this morning that we've got this data spine that we've got now, we can overlay these two thinkings together and see if there's a correlation. It's just looking at data in a different way. Now, the person who did this piece of work wasn't a GIS person, he's a data scientist. But all we did was join the GIS piece with him, and he was able to create a better product to visualise and understand what's there. This data, for example, can now be used as an element into StateStats if we wish. We can leverage this and take this and move this up as one of our performance indicators around a certain part of business, if we choose to. If you came here to find out a bit about code, it's written in JavaScript, and that's all I know. That's it. Other than that, it's way outside of my league, all right? There's some brighter people in the team that understand how this happens. And really what it's about is about taking an idea and a vision and putting it into someone who actually knows how to transform that idea and vision and turn it into an application and make something that's really useful. I want to leverage on this point here, 3 or 8. Do you want to get to the information in 3 clicks or 8 clicks? How many? 3. Awesome. I'm glad you said that. I'll be worried it was 8. All right? So think about an executive who's got so many other things on their plate. And they get asked, what is the water quality in Kangaroo Island like? If you work in government, you know everyone goes and scurries to go find that answer because they wanted it like yesterday. All right? This little bit here will show you using human-centered design, we can approach it in a different way. 1 click, there's the dashboard. 2 clicks, I've got the chart. 3 clicks, I've actually got the information on where it's happening. I'm still trying to get through this website to find this information. And at the very end, when I got the report, it tells me it is good for South Australia. But that's not that useful, is it, really, if we're talking about Kangaroo Island? We want to know what's on Kangaroo Island, not for South Australia. So it's about how we actually reshape the question and then re-deliver the information in a different way. And I think this is really important about simplifying the process. I said this morning, one of the things that we want to do is simplify the process, make it simple. And the strength of StateStat is its simplicity. And Governor O'Malley, he said to me, he goes, make sure they use it. And to make them use it, make it easy for them to interpret. If they can interpret it, they'll keep coming back and wanting to use it. And he goes, they'll want to open it up. They'll want to share it with their colleagues. They'll want to show other people and other ministers. They'll want to show their counterparts in other states. Hey, I got one of these, have you? That's what it's all about. It's about them wanting to use the information. And if it's simple and it's easy to get to, it's going to work for them. So just to wrap up, StateStats is a platform. All right, it's not an application, it's a platform. At the end of the day, what we want to make sure is it's intuitive, it's consumable, it's simple, it's open, it's transparent, and there's a shared understanding. Bring that all together, and you've actually got an effective platform for someone to use. And that's what we want it to be. We want it to be an effective platform for people to use. So quick, we move from one app to another app to another app. So consumable kind of world we live in, but we want this platform to be relevant and grow with them as they grow. So as the CEs grow, we're going to grow the application with them. As they ask more intelligent questions about data or information, we'll grow the platform with them. So it addresses that. So they don't have to go back to their teams to go get the information they really needed. StateStat should be that gateway to that conversation. The last part, build this thing called cadence. Get going, don't stop. Once you start, do not stop. Keep it going. It's going to be a motion of keep it going, all right? Keep it going. Bring that coalition of the willing along. They're going to be the people that will actually help drive that platform forward. As I said, start, don't stop. And the other part is repeat and repeat and repeat, all right? Do it, come back to it. Do it, come back to it. Do it, come back to it. slowly and surely, it will get better each week. And that's the most important part. It gets better and it gets easier each week. So as I said, things that get measured are things that get done. But more importantly, it's using modern technology like ArcGIS Enterprise and ArcGIS portals and things like that to enable what we've got already in our toolkits in the GIS community inside government. Open that up, expose that, give that to our leaders. Once they've actually wanted it, they'll actually go out and collaborate across all of the government. And at the end of the day, all we want to do is make sure that we deliver better services and results for our citizens. Thank you very much.